In this video, we're going to learn how to use some various online resources that can help you understand a piece of text that is challenging for you to read. Now, I hope that when you learn how to do this, and then through this use of this document, this isn't something you just do this year. These resources can help you get through all sorts of stuff in school. Next year, when you go on to be a freshman, you might not be reading books sort of the upper end of your ZPD. You might be reading books that are assigned to you that are way beyond your ZPD, that are way above, and they're going to be potentially really hard to read. These resources can help you read these books. However, I want to read this text to you here because I feel like this is one of those things that is as equally dangerous as it is helpful to tell you about. Use the following resources carefully. Resources means these websites. Use these super carefully. If you use them instead of reading the book, you're more than likely going to have to work way harder in the end or won't do as well overall. What I mean by that is if a teacher is giving you a really decent prompt or a decent question of something to write about, or the assignment you're working with is for the book, or even if you're trying to have a discussion about the book, just these resources alone won't get you there. That's not what they're for. These things are made to help you read a book that's hard for you to understand, to help you learn how to understand it. They're not meant to substitute for the book in any way. So if you use them like that, it will not work out well for you, and in the end, you're either going to not do as well overall, or like in my class, you're going to have to redo assignments all the time because you're not going to be doing them right or as you're supposed to. So use these resources in addition to reading the book itself. And I know it's a big thing, but trust me on this one. I've been through this. I've gone through school. I've also been a teenager who didn't like doing homework. That being said, these things are no substitute for actually reading the book if the level of thinking your teacher is asking you to do about them, or the level of writing or the level of analysis is up to grade level. And I'm going to ask you to do that. I'm not telling you to read the book because it's the right thing to do. I'm telling you to read the book and use these resources because overall, if you think about the process as a whole, it's the easiest thing to do overall. So here's several resources you can use. I'm going to go through each one of them and just give you a preview of what they do. Now, let's say I'm reading the book, The Maze Runner. I picked The Maze Runner. If I go The Maze Runner, this has a reading level of 5.3. So it's not going to be a super complex book. So if what we talk about seems like not super complex, that's why. It's a pretty straightforward piece of text. But let's take a look at a couple of these different resources. Now, when you're on Adobe and you open up this document, if you click, it might ask you, Acrobat doesn't allow a connection to shmoop.com, and then for some reason, what? Huh? I don't know. You may need to copy it, or you may need to, you can go to Tools, and nope, Tools doesn't work, but what you can do is just also type it in. Type in Shmoop into Google. So let's start with Shmoop. Shmoop.com. If I type The Maze Runner, I can also filter my results over here. Result type, everything lessons. I'd go maybe for like free learning guides or study tools. Now, Shmoop isn't really well laid out and well organized. I found it's a lot of times I find them like when I'm Google searching. We'll get to that later. So no dice on Shmoop. Let's try SparkNotes. The Maze Runner is a really popular book, so I assumed it would come up. If I type Maze Runner SparkNotes, these are ads up here. These are not actual things. So if I filter by like SparkNotes, nope, no Maze Runner. Okay, if I keep going, let's go to CliffsNotes. CliffsNotes, Maze Runner. No, Minister in a Maze. That didn't help me. Okay, let's go back and try Novel Guide. Novel Guide. Let's see if we can find Maze Runner here. Nope, nothing. Let's keep going. Pink Monkey. all these sites contain lots of different summaries of different books. You might just have to search a lot of them to find your book. Maze Runner. Did we find anything? That's an ad. That doesn't help us. Nope. No results. Let's keep going. GradeSaver. Let's see, GradeSaver, Maze Runner. Maze Runner questions, Maze Runner study guide. Oh, there we go, cool. Maze Runner study guide. That's cool. So you can use Maze Runner study guide. We could also, Maze Runner summary. Maze Runner summary is good. This one doesn't divide it into chapters, so that might make it a little trickier. They also want you to buy something. GradeSaver is a little bit shady as a site. It's okay to use for certain things, but it's still a little shady. Let's go back to the document. What else can we try? Google search. Search for the phrase, title of your book, chapter summary. Let's try that. So go to Google. Let's type Maze Runner chapter summary. Oh, chapter 1 summary from Shmoop, the first site we tried. Well, we couldn't find it through Shmoop's search filter, but we found it on Google. Now, chapters, there's all the chapters laid out. There's the examples of things that are happening. So if I read chapter 1 and I was like, dude, I do not know what's going on, what I might do is go read this first and then go get a running start at chapter 1 and try reading it again. And if you tried reading it again, you probably go into it with a better understanding. Another option is if you've gotten down to like chapter 5 in your book, and you're like, dude, this is crazy hard. What I might start doing is reading the summary first. Like if I haven't read chapter 6, maybe read the summary here of chapter 6 first, then go to your book and read chapter 6. You'll probably read it super fast because your brain isn't struggling to reread or try to figure things out because you know what stuff is. You'll also understand it way better. So we got that. Now let's say I read it and I want to check and make sure, like, okay, so I read the chapter, read the summary, I want to make sure I really understand it. The other technique is Google search for this. Search for the phrase, the title of your book, chapter quiz. Well, a lot of your books, you'll find quizzes that go along with them. The quizzes are of varying quality. You got to find one that seems to work. So Maze Runner chapter quiz. Oh, GradeSaver, that shady site we found before that tries to sell essays, none of which will work in this class. They want you to buy a study guide, but hey, check it out. There's a quiz. Now, it's not broken up by chapters. It looks like the quizzes are broken up into 4 parts. But if you get to a point where you're like, I don't know what's going on, okay, well, don't answer that question in the quiz. Just submit the answers for your quiz and see what you got. So you can use all these different resources to help you figure out what's going on in your book. But make sure that when you do, you make really good choices about how you use them, because ultimately it's easier in the end if you use them right. All right, carry on.